Veteran economics reporter Ron Insana is back with us. Also joining us, Catherine Rampell, co-host of The Week in Primetime, and former Deputy Director of President Biden's National Economic Council, Bharat Ramamurthy. And Catherine, we're about an hour now into this hearing. We heard ranking Democrat Senator Elizabeth Warren repeatedly calling Warsh Trump's sock puppet. What else stands out to you so far, and what should we expect as this hearing continues?
There was a lot of focus on his Kevin Warsh's financial disclosures or whether they are sufficient. The thing that I would actually like to hear him question more in depth on are about his past interest rate calls, his past calls for the Fed, including the fact that I think Elizabeth Warren, Senator Warren, had briefly alluded to this during the financial crisis, 2007, 2008, that era. He had been calling for tighter monetary policy when everybody else was concerned about the reverse, was concerned that we might be potentially heading into a huge and prolonged recession/depression. In fact, right after Lehman went under, the minutes from the Fed meetings suggest or show that Kevin Warsh was worried about runaway inflation. If we had followed his advice, I think we would have had a global depression at the time. So I would love to hear him talking more about that. I'm sort of perplexed that the committee members have not pressed him more on that. And, there's been some discussion about Fed independence, but I would love to hear them asking more about specific things he had said, suggesting that he may not be as respectful or as protective of Fed independence, including suggesting that it's okay for Donald Trump to weigh in.
He did say monetary policy independence is essential. Bharat, he says he backs that independence of monetary policy, but is also committed to work with the administration and Congress on non-monetary matters. Can he have it both ways, Bharat?
Sure. I think traditionally the independence question is on questions of monetary policy. For me, the real issue here is that Donald Trump has been clear that he is only going to choose somebody to be Fed chair if he's confident that they're going to lower interest rates, regardless of what the data may justify under current circumstances. And now Kevin Warsh has this nomination. What guarantees, what assurances did he give to the president? And as Catherine and some of the senators have pointed out, this is a guy who was very much against interest rate cuts, even when the data clearly justified them when there was a Democrat in office. And when a Republican came to office, he suddenly changed his tune and became, strangely supportive and finding all sorts of novel and complex theories to justify cutting rates, despite the fact that the data don't really support it. So to me, that's really the key issue. We've already seen with Jay Powell how important it is to have somebody who commands the respect of Congress and of the markets. And when you have potentially a new chair who doesn't bring that level of credibility, I think it's concerning. And to that point, I think it's also a pretty bad mark against him that he wasn't able to say to a very straightforward question that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. And frankly, wasn't able to say in response to a very clear factual question from Senator Van Hollen right there, that cutting interest rates dramatically would lead to an increase in prices. Those are disconcerting things to my eye.
The other thing we've heard a lot of talk is about his wealth. Warsh and his wife have incredible wealth. In his financial disclosure forms, it was estimated to be $100 million, his own wealth alone, but there were a lot that we didn't understand or wasn't detailed in those reports, which we heard Elizabeth Warren go after him on right off the bat, asking him about what is behind those pre-existing confidentiality agreements, Ron. Why is that so crucial for him if he is confirmed to this role?
Well, first, as was indicated, there have been some Federal Reserve officials and district presidents who were making comments or involved in decisions that directly affected their personal portfolio holdings. And some of them have since departed as a consequence of this. The Fed did not supervise well enough the investment holdings of some of their own people. Now, in the case of the Fed chair, if you have assets that could be influenced by the direction of interest rates, that is the last position you want the Fed chair to be in, particularly in a sizable set of holdings like his. You know, Alan Greenspan, when he was Fed chair, I believe owned only T-bills. So basically a cash equivalent for the entire time he was chairman of the Federal Reserve, as did, I think, that was also the practice of his subsequent chairs. So you don't want someone to have $100 to $130 million worth of assets that might go up in value if he decides to cut interest rates dramatically. And conversely, you don't want him to not raise interest rates because that would hurt his holdings as well. You want those conflicts eliminated.
Just quickly, do you think his answers would satisfy senators on this? He says he's going to divest, but he's come up with an agreement with the Office of Government Ethics.
So if indeed, yes, he were to move them into, plain vanilla assets as he described them, yeah, I think that would be satisfactory. I mean, whether or not we delve into the details of what it is he owns, whether or not they were appropriate in any period prior, is a question that Elizabeth Warren was driving home, probably to a point of distraction.